Hello, good day everyone. My name is Loreto Atamosa, your instructor for JED 5 with a description, Readings in the Philippine History. And for today's video discussion, we will talk about the first voyage around the world. And for our objectives, you guys are expected to evaluate the merits of the selected narrative accounts from primary sources, to discuss the criticisms on the historical issues, and to cite the historical importance of the selected idea. Ready? Let's start! So in 1519, Ferdinand Magellan, leading an expedition of 5 ships and over 270 men, set sail from Spain in search of the Spice Islands. 3 years later, one ship returned to port with just 18 men. Magellan was not among the survivors, having been killed in the Philippines, but the remainder of his party, quite inadvertently, had been first to circumnavigate the world. Here is a video presentation prepared to us by Doc Ed Padama. Here, let's watch this.
Okay, one of the primary sources in Readings in Philippine History. First Voyage Around the World by Antonio Pigafetta. Background of the author. Born sometime the closing year of the 15th century, parents are Giovanni Pigafetta and Angela Zoga, the eldest child among his siblings of 2. Was a native of Vicenza, a town about 100 kilometers west of Venice, Italy. Antonio Pigafetta studied astronomy, geography, cartography, served on board the ships of Knights of Rhodes at the beginning of the 16th century, had an aunt, Elisabetta, who married Valerio Chericati, accompanied Monsignor Chericati to Spain in 1519, accompanied Ferdinand Magellan together with Juan Sebastian Elcano in the famous expedition to Moluccas, which began in August 1519 and ended in September 1522. Historical context of the document. The first voyage around the world by Antonio Pigafetta was written on board one of the 5 ships that was first to circumnavigate the world. During the expedition, there was led by the Portuguese explorer Ferdinand Magellan, and after his death during the voyage by Juan Sebastian Elcano. The expedition started in 1519 and ended in Spain in 1522. Name of the Spanish fleet that was led by Ferdinand Magellan, Armada de Molucca, provided by King Charles V, included 5 ships, the Trinidad, which has the crew of 55, under Magellan's command, the San Antonio, which has the crew 60, commanded by Juan de Cartagena, the Concepcion, which has the crew 45, commanded by Gaspar de Quesada, and the Santiago, which is the crew of 32, commanded by Juan Rodriguez Serrano, and the Victoria, which is the crew of 43, commanded by Mendoza, which carried the supplies provisions. The Santiago was caravel, while the others were rated as carracks. At the end of the voyage, Antonio Pigafetta, the author of the book, was on board the Victoria. This was the only ship that was able to return to Spain. So this was the map showing the route of Ferdinand Magellan going to the Philippines. Upon arrival in Europe, Pigafetta presented copies of his account to several high personages, including Pope Clement VII, mother of King Francis I of France, and etc. His original diary was lost, and it's not known in what language it was written. Survives in 4 manuscript versions, 1 in Italian and 3 in French. Analysis of the important historical information found in the document. Important reminder: since Magellan and his crew crossed the international dateline, there is 1 day added to the original dates that Antonio Pigafetta wrote in his book for the better perspective of us Filipinos. Throughout the expedition, there served a translator named Enrique. Enrique is from Sumatra, present-day today Indonesia, and was a slave of Ferdinand Magellan. Magellan acquired Enrique as a slave of Malacca. So March 17, 1521, originally is March 16, arrival in Zamal, Samar at present, the island was called Humunu, now Homonhon. Magellan's men called it Aquada Daliboni, Segnali, the watering place of good signs. There are many islands in that district and therefore they called them the archipelago of San Lazaro as they were discovered on the Sunday of Saint Lazarus. April 1, 1521, originally March 31, the first Mass in the Philippines was held in Mazawa or what we called Limasawa. It was attended by Magellan, Raya Colambu or Raha Colambu, Raya Siawi or Raha Siagu, Spanish voyagers, and the local islanders. April 8, 1521, originally April 7, Magellanese men entered the port of Zubu. April 8, 1521, initially Magellanese men encountered some struggle when first entering the port of Zubu. The king of Zubu wanted Magellanese men to pay tribute to them, but Magellan refused and told the translator that they are working for the king of Spain and threatens him with war. April 15, 1521, originally April 14, a mass was held with Raya Humabon and his people attending the ceremony. 800 souls were baptized. Pigafetta showed the queen an image of Our Lady, a very beautiful wooden child Jesus, and a cross. She asked for the little child Jesus to keep in place for her idols, and this image of child Jesus is now known as the Santo Niño found in Cebu. So this was the image of Santo Niño de Jesus given to the wife of Raya or Raha Humabon. April 27, 1521, originally is April 26, according to Zula, the chief of Matan, or now Mactan. Si Lapu-Lapu, or what we call Lapu-Lapu, refused to obey the king of Spain. Si Lapu-Lapu did not want to pay Magellan and his men the goat that they were promised. Magellan was not pleased, since they went to Matan to garner food for their expedition. Zula requested the captain to send him only one boatload of men to fight against the other chief. The captain general decided to go thither with their 3 boatloads. The captain did not wish to fight them, but sent a message to the natives to the effect that if they would obey the king of Spain, recognize the Christian king as their sovereign, and pay us our tribute, he would be their friends. But that if they wished otherwise, they should wait to see how our lances wounded. April 28, 1521, originally was April 27, at midnight, 60 of Magellan's men set out armed with corselets and helmets. Christian king, prince, some of the chief men, 20 or 30 balanghais. The local islander had lances of bamboo and stakes hardened with fire. They shot the captain through the right leg with a poisoned arrow, knocked his helmet off his head twice. An Indian hurled a bamboo spear in the captain's face, but the latter immediately killed him with his lance, which he left in the Indian's body. April 28, 1521, originally April 27, 8 of Magellan's men were killed. 4 Indians were killed by mortars. Of Lapu-Lapu's men, only 15 were killed. Contribution of the document in the understanding the grand narrative in Philippine history. Elaborated the lifestyle back then, and it described what the local islanders wore, what they ate, how they communicated, and how they lived. Pigafetta's journal is the only known document about Lapu-Lapu's life. If you could recall that in the Philippine history, during the 15th century, Filipinos doesn't know how still to record whatever is happening in our country. Considered the best source today of the customs and usages of the Filipinos in the early 16th century, due to the daily notes Pigafetta took in details about the expedition that he wrote about, contains the first vocabulary of Visayan words ever penned by a European. So, musics of the Visayan inhabitants as described by Pigafetta. Vocabulary of the Visayan words listed by Pigafetta that until now, these Visayan words are still existing. Relevance of the document. August 10, 1519, starting point of the first expedition around the world of Magellan. The book serves as an evidence that the world is round and not flat. This book aids the researchers and students of today in understanding the context of the Magellan expedition and how the whole Europe-Philippines conflict commenced. Magellan discovered the Pacific Ocean. Magellan proved that there was a way to the east by sailing west. Growing up, we've understood this issue just simply as the start of the Spanish era and Magellan being the Philippines' villain without taking into debate the context and different reasons of the expedition. The expedition was held from 1519 to 1522, opened many doors for Spain, together with many other different countries around the world, due to the different discoveries from this expedition, led the world to be a more globalized society because of how other countries were revealed to the European countries. Businesses rose because of the discoveries that made up the different products. Collaborations were also made that benefited the different sides. Opened many doors for the Philippines, helped us in knowing how the early Filipinos lived by the account of a primary source who witnessed it firsthand. Will help us understand how the Filipinos of the past lived and how they coped when Magellan and his men came to the Philippines. We discovered what religion Filipinos used to have and they became Christians. We also found out that the first Filipinos fought and delayed the Spanish occupation by years. Pigafetta's journal is also a vital piece not only of the Philippine history but also of the world history. He narrated the events that transpired in a way that gives the readers of his journal a clear picture of what it was like to be a part of the first voyage around the world. And that's all. Thank you for listening. This is your Professor Daniel D. Guzman.
Alrighty, that is a great presentation, right? And so, Pigafetta's journal became the basis for his 1525 travelogue, the first voyage around the world. According to scholar Theodore Cachi Jr., the travelogue represented the literally epitome of its general and achieved an international reputation. One of Pigafetta's patrons, Francisco Chiricati, called the journal a divine thing, and Shakespeare himself seems to have been inspired by work. Setibos, a deity invoked in Pigafetta's text by men of Patagonia, makes an appearance in The Tempest. Alrighty, and there you go. That's the end of our lesson 4. See you guys in the next video discussion. Goodbye!